Hello, my name's Alison and I live in Walthamstow and I'm an artist, and I want to tell you a little bit about what I do. I'm very lucky because I have my own studio here in Walthamstow, but it's situated right up in the north of the borough, opposite the forest. And the forest is where I go for most of my inspiration for my artwork. I'll take my sketchbooks into the forest and do drawings. Sometimes I take my easel and my paints into the forest and paint. But most of my time I spend in my studio experimenting and playing around with different materials just to see what the materials do and how I can use those experiments in my work. I'm a great believer in play. I think play is important because that's how you discover things, and you discover what you can do and how you can use all the different materials that you find around you. Just recently I've been experimenting with ink. I've had different types of ink that I've been using on the watercolour paper and mixing with water, and the different effects that makes. It seems to sort of spread out the ink and you find different colours within the black ink, but also sometimes the inks repel each other, and that's when the magic happens and you can get some amazing results. Would you like to see some? This is my studio. I have a lot of interesting bits and pieces to inspire me. Can you see the bones and the shells? Lots of natural objects. That's some of my sculpture made of clay. There's a little bird there. I've got all bottles. There's all my sketchbooks. I use sketchbooks a lot. I go in the forest and draw the trees, and then I'll come home and use the drawings to make paintings. There's one. Actually, I started this painting in the forest up by Butler's Retreat, if you know that, in Chinkford, and then I came home and finished the painting when I got home. This is a recent one. I'm still working on this one. You can probably see I'm really interested in the light and the shade, the way the sun plays on the trees and creates a nice contrast of the light and the shadow. Okay, so here are some of my recent experiments. I'll tell you how I do them. I put a big blob of water on the page and then I float the ink into it. First of all, I put the brown ink in, which is called walnut ink. I think it's made from walnut shells. And then I flow the black ink into it, and the black ink reacts in such a way that it creates these amazing patterns that look like trees. Quite magical. Really enjoy doing these. Look at some of the sketchbooks. Wherever I go, I usually have a sketchbook with me so that I can stop and do a quick drawing of something that might take my interest. Tends to be trees. Again, looking at the shadows and the contrast. These are ink drawings. There's a fir tree. You can see I've put the water on to make the ink spread out. Gives quite a good effect. That's a pencil one. See what else is in here. Oh. There's another one. Let's bring the camera around. That's right. Some are more detailed than others. Some are just very quick sketches. There's another tree. And this is a rather nice little book that a friend gave me, and I decided to fill it with individual drawings of trees. That's a pencil sketch. That's a pen and ink one. I started to make little haiku poetry to go with them, just very short poems, just to go with the sketches that I've done. It's a twisty tree. I like the way when you add water to the ink, it can sometimes you find other colours in the black, you get browns and blues showing through, which gives it a bit more interest. It's a very twisty old oak tree. That's down by Holmes Park Lake, if you know that. And that must have been a misty day, I think. A misty day. See the puddles of shadows under the trees there. Another beautiful one. See the long shadows coming from the trees. It must have been a winter's day. There's no leaves on the trees, so I think the long shadows are from the low winter sun. Just recently I went for a walk in the forest, and as I walked I made drawings of the trees that I came across and the views through the forest. So I had a little series of drawings which I then very much simplified and made a ink drawing of the combination of trees, and then I tore the drawing up and made a collage of sort of torn up pieces of drawing to try and give the idea of movement, of walking through the forest. And from that I pinned a big piece of paper on the wall of the studio, and I transferred the ink collage into a drawing using graphite, which is very thick pencil. Let's go up a bit closer so you can see how that works. You get a lot of detail in. I tend to use a graphite with a rubber so that I put the graphite on and then I rub into it to take the graphite off, and it leaves those white marks and patternings. Some of the trees look a slightly different colour, don't they? Oops, let's take that away. That's because that's the collage, that's newsprint paper that I've just stuck a strip of newsprint onto the white cartridge paper, and then I've drawn into that for that silver birch tree. It just gives it a little bit more interest. I'm finding it hard to get far enough away to show the whole thing. Let's see, it's such a big drawing. There we go, it gives you more of an idea. I wanted to get the impression of movement, of walking through the forest, sort of fragmented pieces of forest as you go through it, moving. Looks like a tunnel, doesn't it, that dark wood in the distance there. Okay, now it's time for the challenge. What I'd like you to do is to draw a tree for me. I'd like you to use either pencil or ink felt tip's fine. Actually, felt tips would be good, because then you could do some experimenting yourselves by using the felt tip and then adding a drop of water to it to see what it does. Then you must let me know and show me the results. Okay? Good luck.